Hey guys, welcome to another MLS Updater looking at the World Cup. It's underway, guys. I'm here with Larry and Victor. Victor, how are you? How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, good, Mike. Hey, Larry. Pleasure to be here. And best time every 4 years for a soccer fan, right?
Exactly, and in a nice, strange month to have it for many of
Yeah,
us. But it very much works out for our MLS players, Larry, having their season finished.
Yeah, it's definitely a hectic time for sure. And then you throw in the fact, Thanksgiving's next week here in the US, and you got what is it? I guess the World Cup ends a few days before Christmas and Boxing Day, and yeah, it's good for the MLS guys if you didn't have a deep run in the playoffs, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of the teams have been usually have so much time to prepare, but it's all been sort of rushed in for all these managers to get their teams organised with sort of a week's notice to prepare. But it all kicked off with the host Qatar, who faced Ecuador, a 2-0 win for Ecuador, who featured four MLS players, one former with Michael Estrada, former from this season anyway. Um, Victor, for you, Qatar seemed particularly poor, but we had Sebas Mendes in the middle there, who's gone between Orlando and LAFC this season, put on a really good showing in the middle of the park for a really decent Ecuador side.
yeah. Ecuador looked really good to start off. You know, not to take anything away, but to be fair, they were facing a Qatar side that kind of looked a little bit frightened by the bright lights, right? It was their first World Cup, but no better way for Ecuador to start off. I mean, I think this is, and especially in that team with Senegal and Netherlands, you don't know what kind of to expect out of those two. Needed to get the 3 points. I thought again Qatar would put up a little more of a fight as a host. There was that stat, right, that I think a host team has never lost a match,
No,
an
yeah.
opening match of the World Cup. So, I mean, I think taking all things into consideration, it worked out. There was a little bit of confusion there at the beginning with that VAR call, but um, I think in the end that scoreline isn't indicative. Ecuador dominated the game. Like you said, I mean, it just kind of they looked well in mid tournament form, and like you said, I think Cifuentes ended up coming on later on in the game to get a couple minutes, um, and yeah, I mean that bodes well for a couple of MLS players that looks like they're, at least have one step maybe in the next round.
Yeah, it was definitely it was a strange way, like you say, Qatar, the first team to lose, and they've reportedly had sort of 6 months working together, building up to this game, and they just were completely outclassed, Larry, weren't they? And I thought Mendes and Caicedo in the middle there, they're two players who will sit in the middle and they'll just control that game in the center of field. There's not as much flair going forward, but it's just pure control, it seemed, throughout.
Yeah, definitely. I thought Ecuador, Victor had said, they look mid season tournament form, really dominated. Probably could have even had a few more goals if not for the VAR call early, and then Valencia might have had a hat trick, maybe even a fourth. Really dominant performance from Ecuador. I think probably what a lot of us expected maybe from them right off the bat, knowing, like you said, that you have Senegal in this group without Sadio Mane. So I think that just maybe lights even more of a fire and under Ecuador, knowing that they could get into that top two without Mane there. And then you have the Netherlands, who had to go into the late minutes just to get the opening goal and then get a second against Senegal. So it's a really good performance from Ecuador for sure. Really dominated. Could have had maybe even more goals, but I thought the midfield, Caicedo, Mendes did a great job covering a lot of ground, really helping neutralize Al Hidos, the playmaker for Qatar. And yeah, now it's all about obviously the next game for them, which is huge because like I said, with Sadio Mane out for Senegal, I think this just adds even more fire under Ecuador, knowing that they have a really good realistic chance of getting into that top two.
Definitely. I think like looking at their qualifying campaign, the way they've played Ecuador, they don't score a huge amount per game, but they just don't concede many either. They're a very composed team, and they just um, came out in that second half playing at half speed. They knew they won and then Valencia scores that first one that's chalked off. He's carving everyone down. So like as if let's just get on with this one. Let's put this one behind us and move on to the more important games almost. But
yeah, to add a little bit, because I think we saw a bit. You mentioned the 6 months, but I think also Qatar, they used the Gold Cup last year as preparation as well. They were in the Copa America a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Trying to use those competitions to kind of get into that tournament experience, right? And we saw some of these players like Larry mentioned with Haidos and Afif and seen him in some other better forms and just held to 0 shots on target here by Ecuador. So I think, like you mentioned, yeah, Mendes part of that effort to just kind of neutralize anything from the Qatar attack, just kind of keep them. I think who was it? What was it? The right back, right? If I'm not mistaken, Pedro Miguel, the one. That's probably the one guy who had maybe the most effectiveness out of the Qatar players. Everybody else seemed like they were held well in check.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we look forward to that, you see like when they come up against like the Senegal is going to be a huge game in that fight for the one the second or top spot. Who knows? Come the end of the group, but a player like Cifuentes could be really important in changing up the way they went with that 4-4-2 with the two strikers, Estrada and Enner Valencia. But when you're coming up against the Senegal side, we've got the likes of Koulibaly at the back. They've got very, very good defensively as well, like Ecuador, and you're going to need players to find different areas of space, which were much easier to find against Qatar. But is Cifuentes or players like that going to be a little bit more important, possibly coming off the bench once again in this Senegal match?
Yeah, and then obviously, Cifuentes coming off being a little bit more active with LAFC in that MLS Cup run, right? But certainly it's going to be interesting to see how Ecuador evolves here and see if they can make a lengthy run, not just get to the next round and just kind of get through, just see what they can actually put together.
Definitely. See, it definitely seems to be one the South American side for us MLS fans to follow with such a stacked squad. Arriaga and Palacios stayed on the bench for that game, but they're in the squad there. So yeah, look, four players to enjoy and hopefully see on the field in the coming matches. But let's move on to the big ones, to so to speak. Let's talk about the USA versus Wales, Larry, a 1-1 draw. Wales coming back, and Gareth Bale comes back to haunt Americans.
Yeah, it was after being at Bank of California Stadium, excuse me, for MLS Cup and watching my hometown Philadelphia Union suffer through Gareth Bale. Was pretty sad to see.
Yeah.
Gareth Bale scored the tying goal yesterday, but hey, I mean, give credit to Wales. They came out a lot better in the second half. You saw Gareth Bale get on the ball more. I think it was only he had 15 touches in the first 45 minutes, so it was crucial to get him on the ball more. We know he's a difference maker, and it was really pretty poor from the USA because I thought the first 45 minutes it was a little shaky in the early going, but they overcame that. They started getting possession. They owned the possession. They owned the passing, and really good carved out goal by Christian Pulisic to set up Timmy Weah. So they were able to get that opening goal, and then it was just kind of like a different USA team in the second half. Not really as active. Yes, they were fighting, and they were fighting for possession and chances, but hey, Wales were able to get the tying goal. Walker Zimmerman, I mean, tired legs there for drawing. Conceding the penalty, and then Gareth Bale stepping up, and credit to Matt Turner. He got a hand on the shot, and not many people are going to save Gareth Bale's from the spot, but unfortunately for the US, 2 points dropped, I feel, because that was a game that probably a lot of people thought that they would win and could win, and we're in a good situation to get all 3 points, and now it just makes Friday's game against England that much more crucial, because we all saw what England did to Iran, putting 6 up against them like it was nothing.
So Victor, I guess it was kind of similar to what we've expected from Gareth Bale from his stint in MLS. It was a little bit of jogging around, almost like that's sort of the former pro playing with his mates on a Sunday, and all of a sudden he's probably got a bit of a hangover, wandering around just as that last bit of quality when needed.
No, and it was a question mark too, right? Because he hadn't been playing a lot with LAFC. I don't think anybody questioned the quality. He was wondering, how fit would he have been? Certainly, played a large part in this game. His experience through the penalty. There is some talk going on social media right now. They're kind of reviewing the video and see that maybe that ball had gone out of bounds right before, and
Yeah,
should it have not, happened. But in the end, I think um, game changing players find a way to get you on the score sheet, right? And
yeah,
that's what Bell did. He dropped the penalty from Walker Zimmerman. And I don't know if maybe playing against him in MLS has helped him a little bit there, try to
yeah,
figure him out. And then ultimately puts it away, right? And then in the end, actually, he nearly scores. Matt Turner comes out of his area to try to, head a ball out. And Bale nearly gets a chance there to kind of maybe score one from distance. His teammate from LAFC, Karen Acosta,
yeah.
who came on in the second half, denies him. And then the game ends there 1-1. But that could have been a spectacular goal that we could have been talking about today. Maybe if he gets a couple more seconds on the ball there.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I think, I agree with Larry. I think it's, the U.S. missed a chance there where they dominated the first half. They had, Wales sort of just were inviting them in. Once that first goal happens, that's when even Bale, who was kind of non-existent, right, on
Yeah.
other wings, just kind of gets more on the ball, tries to open up the game, and Wales, needing to get on the score sheet, go and chase the game. Um, we'll see if it ends up being a result that the U.S. Regrets, considering they have two more games. Um, and we still don't know how those are going to go. But certainly, another factor to include is that a lot of these players were making their first World Cup. The World Cup debuts. They were
Yeah.
kind of getting their feet wet as well. Maybe that played part of it because I thought there were some set piece opportunities there early on where they weren't sharp, and maybe it was just a moment. Um, but Wales also, right? I mean, returning to the World Cup for the first time in what was it, 60 something years, and you come
Yeah, it's
back
long a while. Yeah.
only to kind of play like that, right? It's
Yeah.
but um, but yeah, I thought the U.S. certainly looked a better team, and Wales looked like the bigger winner and taking a point away from this one.
Yeah, definitely. I thought especially in that first half, there's so much more alive to what was happening in the game. They were so much quicker to react. We talked about Walker Zimmerman obviously giving away the penalty. He was the only starter from MLS this season in that USMNT, but played alongside Tim Ream, who's come back into the side. There was talks about who was going to partner him at the beginning, leading up to this World Cup. Aaron Long on the bench and didn't feature. I thought the two of them played particularly well together. Larry, I can't imagine them thinking of changing going through these games. Does it look like Aaron Long's now going to be that backup just in case of emergency now?
No, I think so. I think that there will, I think, be some changes to the lineup against England, but I don't think center back will be one of them just because, like you said, that Walker Zimmerman and Tim, up until that, I thought Walker Zimmerman did well. Tim Ream brings that veteran experience and 35 years old. Playing against a lot of these guys, not only in the Wales team, but also in the England team, playing
Yeah.
against a lot of them each week in the Premier League and doing extremely well the first half of the season with Fulham. So I think these two will stay together. I think they both bring really good qualities. If you combine them together, Zimmerman obviously, good in the air and a good aerial threat to have, physical, and Tim Ream, kind of an easier going guy in terms of calmness and slowing things down, making the smart decisions. So I think those two will stay together, and Aaron Long again will be a guy off the bench if needed. But I don't see Berhalter tinkering with the center backs through the group stage unless there's an injury.
Yeah, definitely. And when you think about these changes they could make up, obviously coming up against England next, it's a different team. It's a different style of play that compared with Wales, Victor. And could we see maybe a change looking forward, like to that front line? Is Jesus Ferreira going to be used as someone who can maybe pull centre backs out of position? Because that worked so well when Sargent did it, obviously for the Tim Weah
Right.
goal. But can we see some of these other players possibly coming into these games?
Yeah, I certainly think so. We've seen Berhalter make some changes from game to game before. Um, I do think overall, I think this is probably the ideal 11 that everybody
Yeah.
was sort of expecting with the players that were called up. At least for the first game, a lot of these players obviously based in Europe, and Zimmerman we know has been a key part um, for Berhalter. But obviously, a guy like Turner recently moving over to Europe as well. So I mean, there is some MLS flavor to this, and I think yeah, like you mentioned, depending on how the health of Weston McKennie, right? He's a player
Yeah.
that came off in the second half. If he's not to full speed, I mean, I think he'll play, but certainly you'll see a guy like Kalina Costa maybe make some, have more minutes against England. I think certainly with up top might go to a guy like Jesus Ferreira. Not MLS based, but I think Giovanni Reina was one that was obviously a
Was a
question
shock.
mark for fans. Could he go from the start in this game, and how could that factor in, seeing that he didn't play any of the minutes in against Wales? Maybe he was saved for this matchup, um, and yeah, I mean, some of the other guys, I think DeAndre Yedlin got to come on for Serginho Dest there at the end. Maybe we see that kind of move happen again. Although I think Yedlin maybe, um, maybe they're hoping for a little bit more from him. But Christian Roldan's one to maybe keep an eye on. He's been one of the guys, one of Berhalter's guys, right? One of his
Yeah.
go-tos. He could be one that maybe could appear in this England game. Um, whether it be later on in second half and kind of come in and help manage a little bit. I think those are the names you're kind of looking at. Maybe Jordan Morris too, since he got to mention the first game, and see if Berhalter gives him another out.
Yeah, I find Jordan Morris like quite an interesting one. There's like a complete change of pace from the other sort of wide forwards that are on this roster. He's got a bit more physicality about him, very direct and very quick. And if you're chasing a game and you need to get going forward against some of these maybe less physical fullbacks, when if we come against England and they're looking at attacking down those wings, but if they're playing at a back four, Larry could be a useful player. It didn't work out for him brilliantly against Wales, didn't get into the game too well, but he could be a useful player coming into this off the bench as well.
For sure. I think, obviously, Jordan Morris, I think, again, brings something unique to the table. And I know the folks on Twitter might not agree with that, but,
I
you
might
have to
not agree
give.
with a lot of things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to agree with anything we say, but no, I think that Jordan Morris again is like you said, direct. Will go take guys on, brings some pace to the mix, something different, and I think warrants this chance being with the national team. Obviously, he had a tough go of things with the two ACL injuries, so could be a guy again to bring off the bench. I think it will be intriguing to see what Berhalter does with the front three because Pulisic definitely I think will be there. Will Sargent start? Will Ferreira start? I think maybe Sargent stays in there. But again, we could see Ferreira, and then Way obviously scored the goal, so I think he'll be in there. But then again, you have that flexibility, right? Because McKennie again, he wasn't at full fitness really coming into the camp. If he doesn't go 90 minutes, you could also drop a guy like Gio Reyna in the midfield. You could drop Brendan Aronson in the midfield. There can be a lot of interchanging for sure between some of the wide players that have played midfield with their club teams like Reyna and Aronson. So, and I'm actually surprised that maybe if we see Aronson just because his
Yeah,
familiarity with the Premier League, and obviously doing extremely well. I think with Leeds United, to, adjusting to the physicality of the league there. So, but I think for most of the positions, I think you'll see the same guys out there. Will Dest start? Will Yedlin start? I think Dest will get the nod because of the fact that I think he brings you more going upfield than Yedlin does. So but it's Berhalter could go a lot of different ways with this. And I think too, while people might be frustrated with Gio Reyna not starting or Brendan Aronson not starting, it's great to have those guys off the bench because they could easily
Yeah.
be an impact sub.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of good talent going through the whole roster, isn't there? And like Berhalter's got a number of different options in different areas. Like you say, flexibility is really important. And for them now, when they go to plan for this game, is there that sort of nagging feeling for you both that you've got to play? Is the US now have to play England? So when Wales come to play them, where like there is going to be a completely different dynamic depending on if the USA win and they beat England, then England have to go for that win against Wales. Should England beat the USMNT, how much effort are they putting into this Wales game, considering the conditions? Is playing England second the more difficult scenario in this, Victor?
I think it's certainly the one game circled, for everything that is off the field, right? The rivalry, the history between the two countries. Yeah. The fact that it's going to come on, essentially a holiday weekend, right after Thanksgiving. So a lot of people here domestically will be able to watch the game, will be tuned into the game a little bit more because of the time from the holiday. And certainly bragging rights is the biggest one. There are a lot of players like you mentioned, based in the Premier League, right? Aronson and Adams, obviously with Leeds right now, having good moments. Matt Turner winning the starting job. He's been having some good minutes when he's come on for Arsenal. Christian Pulisic, who won the Champions League with Chelsea and had some maybe struggling at the moment, but had some good moments there. And I think certainly there's a lot of things that carry over. There is an importance to this game. I don't know if that necessarily factored in. I do think Berhalter is a coach that kind of looks a little bit farther ahead. So I do think that maybe we will see some of these changes, and that's why maybe some players didn't get as many minutes here or didn't feature as much against Wales. But I don't think that they, were completely looking to that game. I think they just maybe were a little bit more conservative with Wales because it was first World Cup game. 1 point still better than nothing, right? It still kind of sets you up a little bit more. I personally like it in the sense that I would have liked for them to get the 3 points, but I think this scenario does sort of just from a curiosity standpoint now pits them to certainly have to go a little bit more for the win against England, whereas opposed to if you had 3 points in the bag, maybe you're playing it conservative with England, and I don't think that would be a way to approach that game. I'd like to see them go kind of toe to toe, see what they have against England, who were obviously semifinalists in the last World Cup. For better or not, I maybe considered to be among the favorites, and I'd like to see what they can do, and potentially maybe even set themselves up to win the group if they are able to get a victory here.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you mentioned, both you with obviously the big Leeds connection with Jesse Marsch coming in as the manager, and you've got Adams and Brendan Harrison there. I think, Larry, maybe the English manager of the team and people in general are probably taking the USMNT much more seriously than they had done before, as they've seen how well Tyler Adams and Brendan Harrison, especially at this moment in time. Pulisic had a great start to his Chelsea career, but Chelsea's a whole different animal when it comes to sorting out building your starting spot. But Leeds have been an entertaining team, but they've also just stepped into this. Adams and Aronson have stepped into the league and just feel that playing as if it's natural for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, no matter who you look at it, Victor ran down several of the guys, and I think it's just, a testament obviously to the growth of the sport in the country and in US soccer and all. And I think England's definitely not going to be overlooking the US because they know just how much talent they have, the amount of guys that are, continuously making moves from MLS over to Europe or even from a lower European league up to the Premier League, or a lot of these guys even linked to the Premier League. I mean, Weston McKennie's been linked to several teams. Yunus Musa's been linked, some other guys as well. So I think that England's definitely going to have their work cut out for them. It's not going to be easy. Yes, they have the overall, I think, quality edge when you look at the amount of guys obviously in that team. You have Harry Kane on one side and then you have Josh Sargent on the other. It's pretty it's pretty easy to obviously see some of the differences. But I think though that the USA's kind of unity together and that Victor even said as well, a lot of guys made their debut in the World Cup against Wales. So again, this is just another continued step for a lot of them together. A lot of them have been playing with the youth national teams together for, several years in the past. So I think it's definitely going to be a fun game to watch. I know everyone's probably got it, circled on the calendar, and I'm sure a lot of the American players had it circled on their calendar,
Yeah.
even though they had to get through Wales first. But now it's crucial because again, you don't want to go into that Iran game, kind of needing a win or needing, a certain thing to happen. Just kind of go out, handle your business, give everything you have, and and I think obviously anything more than a draw against England is a bonus, because not many teams other than Hungary and the teams that beat England in the Nations League. Not many teams can say that they could beat England in the World Cup. So yeah, I think it's obviously a crucial game and excited for it. And USA is going to be ready to go. They know they dropped points against Wales, and they know they lose that game against England. It's really I think Berhalter's really going to be in some hot water going into the Iran game.
I think probably already is.
Oh yeah,
I will add a duo I kind of forgot to mention. It would probably be part of the back four is two guys that play week in and week out with Fulham, Anthony Robinson and Tim Ream, who obviously Ream made his kind of a late addition. But I think having those two guys play weekly, Fulham's not sitting too shabby there at ninth place, in the table, and Anthony Robinson, I think, is a guy that in this Wales game, a little bit higher off the field, he was a big threat, pushing up in the attack. I think that's obviously, one player to look out for. And then the biggest one here is the motivation factor too, right? This isn't just England versus the US, but for a lot of guys, this is an opportunity to showcase themselves to a lot of scouts that from the Premier League that will be watching this game, purely because of England. They have the opportunity to put themselves in the eye of a lot of these teams. Brendan Aronson, I think, has been rumored with a move to Liverpool, right? I mean, that could be something that solidifies with a good showing here. Josh Sargent, he's currently playing the Championship. You don't think he'd like to make a move up to the Premier League? I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that can make Jesus Ferreira, I think. I don't know how true it is, but I mean, because a lot of these Twitter rumors are just, kind of circling out there. But I like something out there yesterday or so about potentially Arsenal. So I don't know how true that could be, but I mean, like, these are the kinds of things that are also at play in this England US game for a lot of the US players that could potentially be going that way. I think Weston McKennie's also been a player that maybe has been looked at by some Premier League clubs. So that's certainly a different storyline, kind of besides the World Cup that also lurks with this game.
Yeah, it's going to be very fun from both sides, I think, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the USMNT adapts their pressing and their high energy performance. So they dropped off a little bit towards the end of the game. There were times when those sort of key passes maybe weren't made later on in the game because possibly the conditions were catching up on them. The first game, you're getting used to the atmosphere as much as anything else. So we'll have to see what happens on that one. We're really looking forward to that one. But obviously today we've also had Mexico. They kicked off their campaign today with a 0-0 draw with Poland. Two teams who were probably at first fighting for second place, but a shock 2-1 defeat to Argentina has really blown this group wide open.
Victor, who predicted that?
Yeah, I mean, kicking off this from a Mexican point of view, actually started from a Dynamo point of view, obviously for you as well. It's how was his performance in comparison to his performances in MLS? And
yeah, well, he was injured, right? He picked up a bit of an injury in right around August that kind of sidelined him for a little bit over a month. He mentioned it was nothing ever too serious, but obviously he wasn't going to risk not going to the World Cup. And as he kind of was trying to nurse that injury, it sort of went from a bit of a knock to I think more of a foot injury, right? And that's kind of what kept him out a little bit more. Than he rehabbed with the Mexican national team. But I think so long as he could get on the field, it was never in question that he would be one of Tata Martino's most dependable guys. And you see it today. He was in the starting lineup, playing in his third World Cup. Um, in the friendly right before, and here I think you saw some of what he could do for the national team. And maybe not at sharpest because he didn't have as many games down here in Houston. And that was part of the biggest thing out of all of this. Obviously, he was very criticized for making the move to MLS. Certainly today, anything that he does wrong gets magnified, and everybody's kind of saying, "Wow, look how his level kind of dropped by just moving there." And and it wasn't like it was just him having a bad day, but obviously he's the one that sort of does get a bit looked at a little bit more. But overall, he did seem to. It was always kind of known that Alvarez was going to be the sixth for Mexico today, but you saw Herrera kind of shift into that position a little bit, shift into that eight, which is where Dynamo want to play him. Again, I think okay performance, maybe not his best, and maybe part of it is that lack of rhythm. But Mexico today, I think, as a whole, struggled too because they've been having struggles in attack, trying to build up and finding their striker. They took Raul Jimenez, even though he's sort of been kind of working his way back from injury as well, and I don't think even Wolverhampton expected him to play in this World Cup, and he kind of showed up today off the bench. There was talks about who else could have gone it forward, some other snubs, and ultimately it feels like a win, right? Because it's kind of like they're kind of like on the Wales end of this, where they got Lewandowski misses the penalty, Ochoa makes the good save, and this feels a little bit more than just the 1 point. But I think, considering that Argentina was upset, this was the opportunity to kind of go up top of the table. I can't believe I'm saying this with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
and kind of be in that position to move on to the next round. And now just, it seems like it's going to be a little harder now going up against Argentina in the next game. Ideally maybe you're looking at the best result as a tie, but Argentina's going to want to try to get that victory as well to kind of offdo that Saudi Arabia defeat. It's going to be difficult for them in the last two games. And again, Saudi Arabia now, it's not necessarily a cakewalk. So, but I think Ache, we're expected to see him in the next two games as well. Kind of curious to see if he does start against Argentina. I will think he has that backing from Martino to do so, but maybe if he wants to go a little bit more fast, more athletic, maybe somebody else take that spot. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting how he's used, obviously, because Mexico attacks so quickly at times. Going up against Poland, who are very strong sort of centrally, their centre backs are very strong, really good defensive midfielders, and even their attacking players. Obviously, you've got Lewandowski, but their wide players drift inside so much. Whereas Mexico, the fullbacks are bombing on. There's movement going wide, but like you say, it was difficulties in that centre forward position and how to link the play and get players forward. And it's going to be interesting how they get on against Argentina, Larry, because Argentina kicked off this game. I mean, it kicked off at 5 a.m. for me, and Argentina played like it was 5 a.m. for them, and they were sort of waking up to this tournament.
Yeah, it was funny because I caught it maybe a little around halftime and then watched the rest of it, and that was actually probably when all the action really happened, because that was when Saudi Arabia scored the two goals in a 5-minute span early in the second half. And credit to them, they just came out, they weren't afraid of the opponent. They really kind of held their own against Argentina. They got some really important saves, obviously, from Alois, the goalie, and he had 5 saves and also got some help at the end there with his defenders clearing one of the efforts off the line and all. So very disappointing for sure for Argentina, and also for me, because I had Argentina winning the whole thing. So now I have to bury my
I had him too.
I have to bury my betting app until after this tournament now. But yeah, it's tough to see because you look at this Argentina side, you see obviously, Messi takes the spotlight, but you have Lautaro Martinez, you have Angel Di Maria, you have Otamendi and Christian Romero at the back. You have Emi Martinez in goal, the Aston Villa goalie. So this is a game that was there, obviously for the taking. Messi had the early PK, but credit to Saudi Arabia for fighting back and really just kind of throwing a wrench into the thing into this group now because I think Victor even had said it, but before he spoke about Mexico, and now it's kind of like anybody's group. It's up for grabs now. So you have Poland and Mexico fighting for the 2 spot, and now it's now you have those two and Argentina fighting for the 2 spot, and you have Saudi Arabia up top. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I thought Mexico did I thought Mexico deserved a win today just because the fact that they did more with their chances than Poland. I know Szczesny made some good saves. One hit off the post, and then you had the PK save by Ochoa against Lewandowski, which was the first. I think was it the first time Lewandowski missed a PK in international competitions with Poland. So sometimes you need that a little bit of luck, and obviously curious to see how this Mexico attack now really kind of goes because, like Victor said, you have Jimenez who obviously had his injuries and trying to get back to his best. Corona is not in the squad through injury. That I thought was a big loss for them not having him. Experienced guys. So can Chucky Lozano show up in these big time moments? Can Antuna show up? So, but overall, I think must win now for Argentina. Definitely. And Saudi Arabia, I think sitting really good to advance. Maybe not win the group because I think quality wise, you're going to see one of these other teams sneak back into it, but definitely a good spot for them right now to advance.
Definitely. And obviously we mentioned Argentina, Thiago Almada was on the bench and our new sub, MLS's record signing. So it'll be interesting to see if he's used, but got plenty of competition ahead of him on that roster. But Victor, we sort of circle back to Mexico again and talk about maybe some of these players that Mexico have had as sort of forwards who are no longer there, Chicharito and Carlos Vela, for example, MLS wise. How are they going to link this attack to make it a little bit more threatening going into these next few games?
Yeah, well, that's the question for Martino, right? These guys, they're at the World Cup, but in TV commercials for different cell phone companies, it's funny to see. But I think and they both had the reasons, right? Like Vela said that he didn't see how he could add any more than what he already has. You maybe see his successor a little bit in Alexis Vega. That's a guy that today was active for Mexico. That especially with the Tecatito injury, could be the coming out player this year for Mexico. Certainly could be the player that through this World Cup, if he can get some more brilliant plays here. I mean, he's the one who can benefit out of a move maybe to Europe. He's certainly been shopping within Liga MX, but that we kind of saw that deal in MLS, right, with Rodolfo Pizarro. I mean, you kind of hope that that's not the way that it goes. You hope that he kind of follows some of these guys like Herrera that went early to Europe and sort of made a career before kind of coming back this side. Henry Martin was the striker that started. He's certainly been playing okay-ish. He's been playing better with the club than his country, and I think, but he's certainly out of the ones that were brought, the one that was most informed and kind of the one that got a bet. Funes Mori, who plays in Liga MX with Rayados, and he's the naturalized Argentine. Maybe he's going to play against his nation.
Yeah, possibly.
In this game, but he's also a question mark, and I think, but for most of all, it's the service inwards, right, that seems to be lacking a little bit with Mexico trying to connect. Jimenez was brought in to maybe try to get some hold of play, but again, they just couldn't find him as much. They found him on one play where he kind of had to run off, and he just wasn't necessarily in his best form. Maybe in a better part of his career, he would have made that opportunity, and that would have been it. And for the moment, for that reason, they're a little bit over dependent on a guy like Lozano.
Yeah.
And so again, maybe Vega can help him on the other side of the field and start showing some of the brilliance that we've seen, at least in Liga MX, from him.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun, I think, for these next few games, obviously USA and England, and for Mexico going to Argentina. They're big games for both sides now. With it's stepping up almost the level of competition, and the need for a result has got even bigger. So it's going to be really exciting to see how they get on. Obviously, she mentioned Karol Swiderski didn't feature, but was on the bench with Poland, the Charlotte FC striker. So we'll see if he's used in their later games. And then looking forward, France obviously won 4-1 today. Dejanek of Columbus Crew came on for those last 5 minutes in a big win where Olivier Giroud joined Thierry Henry as France's all-time leading goal scorer. So a big day for him and a big win for France. And we've got Canada coming up. So for MLS fans, there's plenty of players there as they come up against for their first World Cup game for a long while, and they take on Belgium. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I had a little chat over those the MLS players so far. It's been an exciting start to the World Cup. And can you let everyone know, Victor, he kicks off, where they can follow your work throughout the World Cup and into 2023?
Yeah, we got thestriker.com. Some great coverage going on, daily guides to some of the games, and obviously some features in there, obviously from my part with Herrera up before the World Cup with Mexico. But yeah, we got daily coverage coming on throughout the World Cup, on the tournament itself, and then also the off season that continues in MLS.
Brilliant, thanks. And Larry, where can everyone find you?
You can find my work over SBI Soccer. Like Victor said with the striker, we're trying to stay active with the World Cup. A lot going on. My lead editor, Ives Galarcep's actually over there in Qatar, so having fun there. I haven't heard too much from him because of the time difference. He's up when I'm asleep and vice versa. So so SBI Soccer, you can follow me there, and then on Twitter at lhenry019, and also actually doing an article for the UK Times this week ahead of England USA. So if you read the Times, check it out. You'll see one of the Yanks make his name over in the UK outlets.
Excellent. Great to see. And yeah, we'll get everything written down for anyone there to make sure they can follow you guys throughout, and hopefully catch up with you guys again soon throughout this tournament to review some of our players. But thanks very much again for joining us, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.